Hi Warren, are you there? Oh, you're muted. I don't know if you're trying to talk.
Hello.
Hi, it's me again.
All right. I see that
Yeah,
Warren is
I've let
logged
Warren
in.
in, and then I've got the others waiting for a little bit longer.
Okay, Warren, are you actually there? Has he said whether he wants us to do anything?
No, not yet. I
Okay.
wonder if he stepped away.
Okay.
Um, I wanted to try and get a feel for it and then run to the bathroom.
Yeah. Well,
In between.
it's
Oh,
a while.
Warren.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Warren. How are you?
Hi, good, Vivica. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. We're just Brooklyn and I. She's there as TSA intermediate. We're your tech host. And
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Great.
and so we just want to know, is there anything special you want us to do apart from keeping a watch on the chat and admitting people?
No, maybe I should just talk through what I think I know. Make sure I
Okay. Are you doing breakout rooms or anything?
know I'm
Okay.
keeping it simple.
Okay. Okay.
So there's no problem there. We'll we'll I can ask people to mute when they're not talking.
Okay. And if they're not talking, in the last session, some people were just kind of moving and or you
Yeah.
know, you know how in your head you're just saying but you don't realize it's being
Mhm.
picked up. So
Yeah.
when I see or hear anything like that, I go ahead and mute them if they're not the ones
Yeah.
speaking. Yeah.
And if somebody falls asleep or something, feel free to
Okay. Do
no.
you want us to, is this interactive? You want them to ask questions as you go? You want them to hold their questions till the end? Uh,
What I'm I'll what I'm leaning toward is having about three segments and having some discussion
mhm.
after each one.
Okay.
But if it looks like we're running out of time, I might not do that. So yeah, I
Okay.
will have periods where I would be the only one talking, and then I'll ask if they have anything to add to that.
How long are your segments? Because, it's only an hour.
Right. Oh,
Okay.
and by the way, yeah, so my start is 3:15 and my
So
end
what time do you want me
of
to start letting them in? You want them
oh,
to come in like 3:10?
yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great.
Okay. And that
And
means
I can kind
you'll
of
be off and running at 3:15. Okay.
yeah. And I can informally chat with them at 3:10, is that right?
Oh yeah, they'll
Yeah.
once we let them in, they'll be here and
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I mean, it will be on the video though, so just
oh yeah,
keep that in
everything's being
mind.
recorded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So um
I mean, but all of this that we're doing right now is being recorded as well, so it's no different.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's great. Okay. So what I was thinking um was to have a about a 5-minute introduction. Um and and
Introduction of your topic.
mhm,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah. And I was, I'm so used to doing it live, I would generally play it by ear as to whether to invite comments then. About how large are we expecting about 10 people maybe or
We don't
I
know.
mean, the
It's
last one, it ranged from 10 to 15. I mean, no more than 15, but it, could be
yeah.
more.
okay, and it's the
But
end of the day. That might be a
Yeah.
factor
I
too.
had a session where there was, just maybe three. So it varied.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted
You
to
know.
tune in, but I was busy helping my wife with a talk
No,
she was
I
about to
understand.
give
And
and
it's
getting my
recorded.
mail.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
some of what's not putting pressure on people to necessarily be
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
everything is, oh, I'll just watch the recording,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
guess those first few minutes, it might as well have not mute them then because I might spontaneously ask a question or something.
Okay.
And then the three main segments, I was going to tell a story as an example of this method of how to tell stories
Mm-hmm.
and have some discussion of that. And then I was going to present the didactic part, which is the hand in the handout, um, and then more discussion. And then if there's time at the end, I'll tell a second story as an example. So when I'm telling a story, I guess would be the time to mute them.
Okay. I'm just
But
going to
if
send a
they,
message to the waiting room to let them know we'll
yeah,
open the doors in at 3:10.
And then Warren, you'll introduce yourself. So we'll just be monitoring those different things. So when the time comes to start, you'll, you know,
okay,
lead off on that.
okay, yeah. And is it your experience that most of them read the handouts in the folder so they're kind of familiar with, say, who I am? Or
What was your question? You're
oh,
wondering how much time do you need to spend talking
I,
about yourself?
yeah, I'd rather just say I come at this personally and professionally. I've
I would say describe yourself in one sentence.
perfect. That
Yeah,
sounds perfect.
because you only have an hour and
Yeah,
once they get engaged, you don't want to run out of time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my way of not worrying about a crunch at the end is that the second story I would tell would be optional. If we have a great discussion about the handout, we'll just end it there. If we have 10 minutes at the end, I'll end on another story. But the time to stop is at 4:15.
Yep.
Okay, great. And let's see. And is it your experience that most people have printed out these handouts?
They
Or
have not.
they
That
have
has
not?
not been my experience.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll say that no big deal. I will explain them verbally, and then if they want to go back later and print them out, they could have that.
Yeah. And so it looks like a plus side actually is that you are the last. Oh, no, no, no. We have to leave out exactly at 4:15 because the social hour starts at that time. So
Okay. I brought a drink.
yeah,
It's kind of late in the day for me, so I've got coffee. And I never have iced coffee ever because it keeps me awake for like 12 hours. But today I thought I better be awake for.
you better do something to stay awake. Yeah. Well, good news, you have 5 people in the waiting room so far.
Oh,
And
good.
I'm just gonna step away for a moment and I'll be back in time to let them in.
Okay.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Okay. And
All
and
right.
okay. And
And
I'll
it's
go to the
4 minutes
bathroom.
after, so I'll let them in another 6 minutes.
Okay. And the other lady, is that Mary? I don't see
That's
a
Brooklyn. Her name is
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Okay.
She's your other tech host.
Okay.
Mhm. Where are you located, Warren?
In Houston?
Okay. Are you part of the Houston Storytellers?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I've probably seen you there then.
Yeah,
I
I've
come
seen
there.
you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't go that often. I used to
Yeah.
go before COVID when it was live a little bit more,
Right.
and then I sort of fell out from it with the Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I should start doing it more though. And I think
Oh,
they're going to start
absolutely.
meeting
I mean,
live.
it's such a good, I mean, if you're telling stories, it's such good practice time and they give really good feedback,
Yeah,
really helpful feedback. Yeah, I think it's worth it. And you're not investing any fuel to get there.
right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I my storytelling home has really been the moth, but
Mm.
as I get older, everybody there seems like they should be my grandchildren. So,
Oh, wow. It's getting
but
younger and younger. Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
that I'm getting older. But
But
uh,
that's encouraging too, because I've had a concern that storytelling is experiencing the plague. I say plague for lack of a better term, but experiencing the same rut that
mhm.
churches,
Yeah.
experience, where all of a sudden, the youngsters have grown up, they've gotten grown, they've gone off to college, they moved away, they don't come back, and then what's left are their parents, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles,
Mhm.
and no new blood is coming in, no new families are coming in, and eventually there's a for sale sign, you
Yeah.
know, in the front
I
yard. And
You're
so if
so
we if
right.
we don't get young people telling stories, um, it's I think it'll become a lost art.
Hmm. Yeah.
The only stories will be about, yeah, we used to. We used to tell
Yeah.
stories about, yeah.
Well, the moth has succeeded in appealing to younger people. There's sort of a price for it in some ways. Some of the
In
things
terms of the filter, would you say?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
lack of filter.
Yeah.
Um, and but I give them credit. In a way, they're kind of like a church at their best, because people come and share things that are very meaningful to them, and there's a community. But but I haven't felt that a whole lot lately. It just seems like almost like stand-up comedy, and it's the dirtier it is, the better it is,
That's the way just about to me every art form has become now.
Yeah,
That shock value. And
yeah,
if you don't have that shock value, it's
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I know we're about to start. I'm gonna do my bathroom trip now.
Okay. You got
And
less than 3 minutes.
okay, all right. Good timing.
All right.
And I am back, so
Okay.
I'll keep an
One,
eye on the waiting room once we get going.
yeah, Warren just took a bio
Yep,
break real
yep.
quick, so. And I just sent another message saying the doors will open at 3:10 p.m. to
Okay.
those that are waiting.
Okey-doke.
There was somebody, I don't remember who it was, that was in and they left. I don't know if they came back, but
Mm,
where are you located, Brooklyn?
Waco.
Oh, are you? Okay. Were you
Yeah.
were you there
At,
when I
at
came?
the porch tail. Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought your face looked kind of familiar. I when I asked you how to pronounce your name, I did not when I was signing up, I didn't pay attention to the first name on there. I just saw the last name and
Uh-oh.
thought that was the first name. So when you said
Oh
your first
no.
name was Brooklyn, I was like, let me go back and see who I
Yeah.
thought it was somebody else signed up. So how's your last name pronounced?
Winvin.
Wenvin.
Yeah. It's
Is
Dutch.
that is Dutch?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking it had an Irish, maybe an
Mm,
Irish
yeah, I
sound
mean, I
to
can
it.
hear what you're saying, but yeah, no, it's Dutch.
Oh, okay.
But I was Anderson and then I got married. So used to be very
Gotcha.
easy to pronounce and then nobody can do it.
Gotcha.
Hey Vivek, I was just going
Hey,
around checking the rooms, making sure nobody was having problems, but I see you're here and you got
Yeah.
it all under control, and I see
Yeah,
Warren's there.
we're in less than a minute before we open the doors and let the participants in.
Okay, and then start at 3:15. We're
And
good.
start at 3:15. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Hey, appreciate you.
All right. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I have been attending periodically the one that group that I guess Michael formed that meets on
Oh, the
Monday
story
night.
circle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's
Mm-hmm.
been kind of like the Houston
Yeah,
Guild.
it's 310 Brooklyn.
Okay, I'll let him in.
All right. And this would be a good time for you to just kind of give if you want to give any additional things about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome.
Hello.
We're glad
Everybody's
you're here. Hi, hi.
I'm
Hi.
here. I asked everybody else to follow in. So,
All
yeah.
right.
how are you guys doing?
Doing well, and you?
Good.
Good.
How'd your
Another
workshop go this morning?
It was, well, oh, is she waiting? I think it went well. I don't remember what other things were going on, but I think maybe, people got drawn to some of those. But it was good. And there's the video, so
Great. How many did you have in your session?
it was vacillating between 3 and 5. Like I think some were just coming in, checking it out. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened. Yep.
Hank, I told Vivica what I'll tell you. I, I'm sorry,
Somebody, oh,
Tweed was speaking.
no. That was your echo. I'll just mute
Oh,
him.
okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to hear your workshop, Hank, but I was busy getting this one ready. And Marcia is going to be giving a speech tomorrow, which is unusual for her.
No kidding. Wow.
So she was practicing on me. It's a graduation speech.
Well,
So,
look, ever since that podcast when she was able to talk about her dad,
yeah,
it's been going uphill.
that's right.
Well, that's
And-
great. That's great.
And Hank, I guess you can see what I'm wearing my lucky shirt
That's right.
you
That's right.
gave me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You could
sweet.
get another one too if you wanted to.
Oh no, I want the lucky one.
Oh, yeah.
Graduating from what,
Uh,
Warren?
it's a small group. It's those who are completing a medical residency program through in Houston through Methodist Hospital. So they have a annual, graduation luncheon, and then they come with their families and friends. So my wife is retiring in a couple of months, and they were kind to invite her to give the graduation address, I guess you'd call it. So she keeps saying things like, well, they don't want to hear this, do they? And I say, no, that's good. I see everybody coming on.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Tweed, is he still there?
Oh, he just went off.
He
Rain,
was
how are you?
he
Rain, how are you? Hank here. How are you, Rabbi? Remember me? I was the one who introduced you at, yeah. How you doing?
I think Rain must be muted, or at least
Yes,
I
I
don't.
know. Yeah, I know. I was,
it's not showing that she's muted.
Huh.
She's unmuted.
maybe might want to check your volume, Rain.
Well, she
Yeah.
had some issues last session, right? There were
Yeah.
some technical difficulties, so
I don't know. She's unmuted though. It may just not be picking up her voice. I don't know. Tweed was unmuting and I was getting feedback, and so I
oh, they're
muted
coming
him,
back. Hold on one second.
hoping that's Tweed coming back. Oh yeah, there you go. Got him.
And I want to say hi I see Marilyn. Hi, I'm Warren. Holleman. And Vivian. Hi,
Mhm.
this is Warren.
Hey, Vivian.
I think we got 1 minute before we start.
You do. A little less than that, actually.
Okay. Just a quick question before we start. Did any of you by any chance print out any of the handouts that were on the folder? Pamela? Okay. Okay. That's for the others. I'll present them orally, and then if you want to print them out later, they'll be on there.
Okay, and I'm going to mute everybody except Warren. If you have any questions or comments, just raise your hand or your virtual hand for him to acknowledge you.
Okay. And if I miss it, Vivica, you tell me.
Right. I'll keep watch for it. But if
Okay. Or
in
the
general, if you're not speaking, then please stay muted.
Yeah, and Vivica, feel free to interrupt me. I'm okay with that if you need to. Well, shall we start? I'm Warren Holleman, and this is the workshop on healing stories as tools for processing trauma, pain, and grief. And my introduction of myself would be simply that healing stories are something that have been important to me both personally in dealing with some of my own uh, pain, grief, and trauma issues. And healing stories are something I've also used in my professional career. I'm retired now, but in the past, in working with people who had experienced these things, we developed ways of telling we help them develop ways of telling their stories that were quite helpful, I think. What I'd like to do today is I'll take a couple of minutes just to summarize the handout that's called Themes of Healing Stories so that we'll be on the same page as to what a healing story might be. Everybody would have a different definition. I'll give you the one I've come up with. And then I'd like to tell a healing story as an example of the method that I'm going to teach. And then the meat and potatoes will be that I'll go through the other handout called How to Tell a Healing Story. It's a 3-step process. And then and we'll talk about that. And then if there's time, I'll tell one more healing story as an example of this method. So let's start with the themes of healing stories. I have a very broad liberal definition. It seems like every story I tell has an arc towards something positive or good happening. So I'll have a broad definition, but on the handout that I came up with on that, I talked about how healing stories are either about coping with or recovering from some sort of challenge. It could be grief, loss, illness, suffering, depression, family violence, abuse, divorce, addiction. They're about overcoming things like bad mistakes, bad decisions, things that were embarrassing or things that you felt guilty about. They're about overcoming injustices, discrimination, hate, and so on. Healing stories are stories that are about breaking things like breaking bad habits or negative thought patterns or negative generational family patterns. Healing stories are about mending after promises have been broken or relationships have been damaged. Healing stories can be about so those are the types of healing stories that relate to healing our hurts. Then there are other healing stories that are about establishing a firm foundation to protect us from future hurts. And that could be something as simple as learning certain virtues or strengths like serenity or courage or wisdom or self-confidence, learning to trust others, learning to become vulnerable. Those could be stories about finding purpose or meaning, finding community, finding self-acceptance. Those could be stories about building friendships, building communities, building empathy or solidarity, building through redemption or reconciliation or forgiveness or gratitude. So if your stories have an arc toward like scaring somebody to death, I would call that a scary story. If they have an arc toward just an angry rant about something that went wrong, I would say that's probably not even a story. It's a rant. But if the arc, maybe it starts with something horrible or bad that happens, but in the end, you've taken the listener on a journey toward healing of some sort. That's what I would consider a healing story. So with that in mind, I'd like to tell a healing story as an example, and maybe I'll ask, how many, I think, Vivica, could we unmute it for about 2 minutes? Would that be possible?
Do you want everyone to unmute?
Yeah, if you could
Yes.
unmute. I want to tell a story about a hurricane. It's an example I thought a lot of us from the Gulf Coast, at least, would certainly resonate with. And, but before I do it, I want to make sure this is a Houston story, so we ought to be on the same page. How many of you are from Houston or have lived in Houston?
The area, yeah.
The area. Yeah. Oh, great. We've got about 4 or 5. So this is just a fun question. Who would you say is the most famous person in Houston other than Beyonce?
Oh,
Mattress Mac.
There you go. That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
Right now, Jordan Alvarez.
Yes.
For the Astros. Sorry, yeah.
Yes. These last couple of months for sure. But over the last 2-3 decades, maybe, I think Mattress Mac is up there. Could my Houston friends here just tell the others who Mattress Mac is?
say it.
Go ahead,
Save you
Vivi.
money. Yeah.
He has these TV commercials.
Yeah.
And what
Save you money. Right, that one. Right.
He talks 100 miles an hour like a used car salesman. He has a furniture store. And at the end, he always grabs a wad of money and jumps up and down. And he's like a cheerleader. And he talks very fast. Is that a fair description of him?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He's also known, though, for his hurricane relief work. Do you know about that?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you want to comment on that? Or
Well, just all kind of relief work. Even this flood in Central Texas this last year, he was sending mattresses up there for those people. So he does that for anybody who goes through a crisis. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, didn't he also let people come into the store
Yeah.
and actually sleep on the mattresses, or he provided shelter?
Yeah.
He feeds them and stuff like that too. Yeah.
He opens his store up during hurricanes to the general public. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah. Okay. So you have a feeling for who he is. He's a little bit of a cartoonish character on his TV commercials. It's kind of embarrassing if you have friends visiting you and they say, "This is Houston," and you read about the good things he does. Okay. So I would say, who do you think the most infamous person in Houston is? But I would, at the time this story occurred, I'll just tell you, it was the CEO of Centerpoint Energy. Because they had not responded well to the hurricane. So I want to just give you that background so you could appreciate this story as a Houston person would. So this story takes us back 2 years to 2024. And you can mute yourself now if you want. Back to 2024. And for our family, this was not the best of times. In fact, this was pretty much the worst of times. Marcia, my wife, was seriously ill. She kept getting worse instead of better, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then while we were in the middle of that, along came Hurricane Beryl, and it flooded out one part of our house and burned up another. For months, we had no water, electricity, or gas, and only half of a house. For months, we felt overwhelmed, exhausted, scared in terms of my wife's illness, and we felt alone. We just felt alone. And by the way, I should have said, I'm telling this story as an example of the model of one way of telling a healing or trauma story. So we felt scared, overwhelmed, exhausted, and we felt very much alone. And I'd say we were in shock too. And then one day, my cell phone rang. Hi, I'm Lizzie from Gallery Furniture. Mattress Mac asked me to call you. Mattress Mac? Yes. Is this some kind of joke? I said. No, he read the article about your house fire in the newspaper, and he wanted to reach out and say how sorry he is for all that you and your wife have been through. I don't know why, but I was so stunned out of my situation that I started to cry. I mean, most of our friends didn't even know much about what we were going through. And then Lizzie said, Mac would like to invite you to come out to Gallery Furniture. He wants to shake your hand, hear your story, and give you a brand new mattress. Now, that was incredibly kind, but it was awkward. You see, Mattress Mac was, and I guess still is, he was Houston's most famous Trump cheerleader. And it just so happens that I'm not just a Democrat, I'm kind of a hardcore Democrat. So I thought I should be honest with Lizzie, and I said, that's very kind, but I think I should warn you, this could be awkward. Mac and I don't see eye to eye on things. Not true, she said. He agreed 100% with the things you said in the newspaper, especially the part about Centerpoint Energy, putting profits in front of people. So, a few days later, there I am at Gallery Furniture. Marcia, my wife, didn't go with me. She was too sick. And I'm sitting down on a sofa with my new buddy, Mattress Mac, and telling him our story. So I said, Mac, it all started the morning of the hurricane when I got up to pee. And I went to the bathroom and I found myself standing in an inch of water, which didn't make any sense. I mean, Mac, you're a guy, you know, sometimes I miss the toilet, but never that bad. And he thought that was funny. He laughed. And I knew I had an audience then. So then I said, I ran outside in the middle of the hurricane to turn off the water to the house because I couldn't figure out why the bathroom would be flooding when no other rooms were flooding, but I didn't want it to keep coming. And when I touched the water valve, it shocked me. Mac, that didn't make sense either. Why would a water valve be electrified? And then I went around to the back of the house where these trees had fallen down and wires were everywhere. And kind of stupidly, I crawled in there and I flipped the switch to the main breaker thinking, okay, we've solved that problem. I went back in the house, but when I touched the refrigerator and the hot water heater and a couple of other appliances, I got shocked again. That made absolutely no sense. I had already cut off the electricity. Where was that electricity coming from? And then our steel water pipes started making this black smoke. We live in an old house. The water pipes are steel. Black smoke was coming off and up and setting off smoke alarms. That didn't make sense either. Steel doesn't burn. It was like living in a Stephen King novel, I said to Mac. I said, all day long, we heard the sound of smoke alarms going off. We smelled electrical wires melting and burning. And we would touch things and we would be surprised by being shocked. So we kept calling Cinderpoint saying, please come out and cut off our electricity. We don't know what's going on, but we need you now. All the rest of Houston was calling them saying, please turn on our electricity. We were saying, turn it off. But Centerpoint did not come. But a neighbor came, and he just happened to be an electrician. He discovered that a hot wire that had fallen in the back was touching the faucet in the back. And that was sending an electrical current, he said, through the entire steel water pipe system. And that's how the refrigerator had water, coming in for the ice and the hot water heater. He said, that's why you've got electricity in your house. He took his little radar gun and measured the temperature at one of those places where the black smoke was coming up, and it was 400 degrees. Yeah, at first it was 250, and then he came back a few minutes later, it was 400. He said, this is really bad. I said, but where's the smoke coming from? Steel doesn't burn. He said, there's rubber or glue gaskets connecting the joints. That's what's burning and setting off the smoke alarms. And that's why your toilet is leaking, because the pipe, same thing. The gasket has burned up. He said, if Centerpoint doesn't come soon, it's just a matter of time before your entire house goes up in flames. So we get back on the phone and we're just calling them nonstop. So when that happened the next morning, and by that, I mean not Centerpoint coming, but the flames, the Houston Fire Department was our hero. They were at our house in 6 minutes, literally, or else the entire house would have burned down. The hot steel pipes had touched the wood. The wood had finally gotten so hot, it just started igniting. So I told Mac that the Houston Fire Department was our hero because they were there in 6 minutes. And then finally, Mac perked up. He couldn't stay quiet any longer. He said, did Centerpoint come in? Oh, I left out one detail. I'm sorry. So the fire department came, and the fire captain was so upset, he got on his cell phone and called Centerpoint and said, I'm the fire captain for this area. You've got to get out here. He said, I cannot bring my crew out here again. It's too dangerous. They could be electrocuted, and also the gas system is electrified. The house could blow up. So I cannot bring them back here. You're the ones who can solve the problem. So that's when Mac perked up and said, well, did Centerpoint come in 6 minutes? I said, no, unfortunately, it was another 16 hours, even after the fire captain called. Well, those of you who are from Houston know how Mac talks nonstop on his TV commercials. So I had not imagined that he would be a very good listener. But I have to tell you, except for that interruption at the end, he listened very carefully. And it was clear that he cared, and that meant a lot. And then he said, I want to give you a brand new mattress. And I didn't know what I was expecting, but he gave us a really good one. I figured out it cost 4 times more than the one we had been using. And then for the next several months, he had a picture of him and me sitting on one of his sofas. It was a mid-century modern, if you're curious. And he put that picture at the top of his Facebook page. That was the big picture across the top, sitting there like we're best buddies. And I have to say, that's what I love about Houston. That's what I love. Thanks to this experience, that's what I came to love about my city. Where else could two people come together like that? In Houston, sometimes our hurricanes are so large that it makes our differences seem small. In case you're wondering, I do have some good news. It's been 2 years now, and our house is better, and so is Marcia. If you see Mr. Charles Dickens, you can tell him it's starting to feel like the best of times again. So that's one of my thank you. Why don't we have a brief conversation about the story, and then I'll present sort of the structure behind the, we'll talk about the structure, but what did you notice? You can unmute yourselves now if you want. What did you notice about the story that, or just the structure of the story, or the some of the techniques that might lend themselves to healing?
I heard you building the conflict, you know, stating the problem and making that very clear to all of us, what the problem was, and describing that problem very, very well.
Thank you. Yeah, it was hard to do that in a short, it was so complicated. I mean, we would have never known to this day what really happened if our neighbor hadn't studied it. It was such an unusual problem. Our house is not grounded the way modern houses are grounded. So today you wouldn't have that problem, I don't think. Okay, so I felt a need to describe how bad it was, but I didn't want to kind of be so bad that I leave you just feeling sorry for me or something. I wanted it to point towards something good happening.
Well, having to sit down with Mattress Mac when you're in his republicanism and not being one, I relate to that. That was sort of like that was the biggest step you took.
Yeah, yeah, that was part of the healing too. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's another technique is I've learned is if you can point to other people as your heroes, don't be the hero of your own story. And in this case, there were so many heroes, I didn't even have time to put them all in there. But the fire department, Mattress Mac, the electrician neighbor, and there were others. Our son was very helpful. Some other neighbors. Any other comments?
What prompted you to think, Warren, that there would be any kind of conflict sitting down with Mattress Mac, given the fact that he's a Republican?
Well, he and I, he's not, he's very vocal about his views. And I was trying to be on my best behavior while I was there. But even I said, I noticed, I slipped one time and said, what was the governor doing in China while we were having this hurricane? And he changed, he was trying to be on his best behavior too. And he didn't want, because he's friends with the governor and all. But yeah. So, okay, well, why don't we do the meat and potatoes? Oh, yes, Reverend Faye.
Well, you mentioned that you didn't think Mattress Max would listen, that he would be a good listener. And the
Yes.
fact that he listened, with the exception of asking one question, I consider that healing,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, well, what I thought was the case is not the case. And then I would say, too, the resolve. There was some resolve in the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like he was one of the first people to reach out to us, and he didn't even know us. He listened, and I know that's not in his DNA, or I didn't think it was. And then he gave us this really nice mattress. And we weren't the only ones. There were several others, and from his Facebook page, I've learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Warren, I was going to say too that adversity knows no political uh, affiliation.
Right.
Because it brings the humanity out. And that's the sad part, that people put that political thing when we're all just human, and we can get past that. And that was expressed with you and Mattress. You're like, y'all just sit down. Y'all were just two people trying to figure it out. We
Yeah.
weren't this and that you were just people trying to figure.
That's the crux of what I learned from this. That's sort of what I was saying, is that our hurricanes are so big that our differences seem small. But I like what you said too. I might slip that in next time I tell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know most of you don't have this handout about how to tell a healing story, but I'd like to take some time and review that, because that's really the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to say today. The story was intended as as one way of getting this information was by seeing an example of it. And then through this handout, which I'll share now, you'll see a different, you'll get the sort of the didactic side of it. So I'm old and it's taken me a long time, but I think I've learned a technique for how to develop a healing story that at least it works well for me. I've told other sort of healing stories when I was a little bit younger, and I didn't really follow these steps. But the story I just told you, and the one I'll tell at the end if there's time, really did sort of follow this formula. In summary, there are 3 steps to how I generally do it. One is if it's a serious trauma or painful or grief experience, the ideal, if it's something that just has you numb, the ideal is to tell it to a professional, some sort of counselor, psychologist, chaplain, minister who's trained in counseling and therapy. So step 1 is talk about your experience with a professional. Step 2 is then you can start telling your experience to trusted family and friends. And then only after you've done that for a while, step 3, tell your story to a public audience, a wider audience. So let me comment on each of those 3 steps. There's a fundamental rule in psychology, and I think also storytelling, that you shouldn't talk about a painful experience in public until you've processed it in private. Otherwise, you're likely either to stand up there and cry the whole time, or if you're angry, to rant, or do something, or some of each, have an emotional soup that you might say it was therapeutic, but I don't think the audience would benefit from. So when we talk to a professional, I think there's 3 things we try to accomplish that are going to eventually lay the groundwork for telling this as a crafted story. One is we're just going to get them to help us remember what happened. I mean, when painful or traumatic things happen, we only remember parts of them. And generally, the more we can remember, the better we can heal. So the professional can help us remember what happened. And then they help us process that pain. They might say, well, how did you feel when the black smoke was rising and the smoke alarm was going off and nothing made sense? How did you feel when Mattress Mac just sat there and listened? So processing all of that is healing. And then 3, I think a therapist can help us connect our experience to a bigger life story. Like, let's say my wife makes a negative comment and suddenly I just go off somewhere and disappear because I can't stand to be with her. Maybe if we process it, we'll learn that that comment was the comment my mother made right before she left my father, that kind of thing. And it takes sometimes a professional to draw that out. So that's step one. Step two, tell your story or your experiences, your painful experience to your most trusted, emphasis on trusted, family and friends. Now, if it's not that traumatic, you could skip the first step or not. They wouldn't have to be that trusted. But generally these things can be really painful. So the trick there is that they can further the healing process that the professional started helping us with. They can further it by listening empathically. Like Mattress Mac really, really listened. And that was a part of my healing, especially to have somebody that I didn't think would even like me listen. And then another thing that might happen when you tell family and friends is you might become highly emotional. You might start crying uncontrollably, or you might start ranting in anger. And that's okay. If these are trusted family and friends, that's what they're there for. That's part of the healing process. As long as especially if you work toward not being triggered in the future when you talk about these things. When you get to the point that you can talk about these experiences and you're not triggered, you don't start crying uncontrollably or ranting angrily, then maybe you're ready to start crafting it into a story that you can share with people outside your circle of trusted family and friends and a professional. Okay? And then comes step three. And we're storytellers, so this is the big step. And I just want to share some of the things that I've learned, and you'll know most of them already, and you'll know other things I don't know. But these are the things I've learned. When you get ready, when you're thinking about sharing this with a wider audience, it stops being a jumble of vague memories and anecdotes, and it needs to become a crafted story, a well-crafted story. You don't stand up in front of a general audience with just not knowing what you're going to say, Your focus is no longer, and this was hard for me to learn because I had an experience of being in group therapy when I was a young to middle-aged adults that just changed my life. It opened me up. And for a while there, I thought everything was group therapy and I should just share everything with everybody because it had changed my life. It had healed me of a lot of childhood hurts. And the storytelling community taught me that you don't stand up in front of people and just, say anything. Vulnerability is important, but you're not supposed to be vulnerable to the point of neediness or them feeling like they've got to, care for you. So you stop thinking in terms of what did I experience, and you start thinking in terms of what parts of my experience would be interesting and appropriate for a general audience. So that hurricane story, obviously, there were a million things that happened that I did not include, partly because of time limitations, but partly also because they might not be as appropriate for general audiences. I made the decision to put the focus on Mattress Mac and that chapter of the story, and to sort of dig so that I could dig deep into that. And so that's what I did there. Earlier versions of the story, he was just a minor character. And now where I am now, he's sort of the hero. Another thing that's kind of obvious, but if this is a story for the public and it's to be a healing story, and Hank and I have talked about this a lot, there needs to be an arc toward healing. not an arc toward why I hate this person. I'm never going to talk with them again. That's called a rant. Like I could have made Centerpoint. Uh, I could have made this a rant about Centerpoint, but I tried to not dwell the whole time on that. So the arc has to be towards something positive. And that's where my personal healing comes from, and hopefully the audience as well. And one technique I found, and if I have time to tell another story, you'll see that there too, is to identify a saint or a hero who made a positive difference for me. And Mattress Mac, Houston Fire Department, and the electrician neighbor were the ones I highlighted in this story. I would that was important for me, and I think yeah. And then there are those experiences where things don't get better, like doesn't somebody gets worse instead of better, or they die, or and even there can be an arc toward healing if you you find some silver lining in that dark cloud without being Pollyannish. That's the trick. For example, maybe this experience was the hardest thing of my life, but it made me more aware of what the rest of the world experiences. It made me more empathic. Um, it made me better prepared for future challenges. Maybe what I learned, this was awful and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but from it, I learned that I'm not alone, that there's a community out there. And that's like Mattress Mac, and my neighbor and the fire department. That's where I choose to spend my time now, thinking about those parts of the story. And perhaps I learned something from this experience that will help me help others. If my neighbor's house burns or whatever, I'll have a better idea of how to support them. Another thing I would say, for me, I tend to tell maudlin stories, and I realize that that's no fun to listen to, and Hank knows that. So I'm trying to put more humor in my stories. And that's why I really played up this thing with Mattress Mac, because there's a lot of irony and humor there. And it's good for me to find things to laugh at. If you tell a story about something just really awful, obviously you wouldn't want to use humor in a, you know, in a shallow way. I mean, that wouldn't, and I don't think dark humor works very well either in healing stories. That's more for scary stories, um, but if you can find things to create some comic relief, that's really good. And it's usually through finding the irony that's out there. As I said earlier, tone should not be raw or strongly emotional for a public story. That's for your family and friends and your therapist. They're not there to heal you. They're there to be entertained and maybe to be edified. And it's a gray area as to how, like, I definitely would say that strong emotions are not helpful in these things. If you tear up a little bit, I'm okay with that. If you get a little bit angry, like I got angry at Centerpoint, I think that's okay. Some people might not think that, but I would definitely say you don't want to go too far with that. And then the last thing is more of an ethical thing, like any story, but especially stories where there's conflict and pain and maybe something awful happens. You've got to think about the privacy of the characters in your story. like with Mattress Mac, I felt very comfortable talking about him because A, he's a public figure. B, he did a good thing. And C, he put our whole story on his Facebook page. He has a video. You can still find it there. It's not the big picture, but right below it, he has a thing called videos. And he combined my story with about 5 others. So it's not very long, but he wants to tell those stories. So I felt good about that. Um, but privacy, I think there's certain things we can do that I've done. If it's a story where I don't want the person to be identified, I will change, even though I call it a true personal story, I'll change their gender, their age, their location. I'll say they're from San Francisco and maybe they're from Birmingham, things like that. And if I cannot hide their identity that way, I'll either call them on the phone and ask if what they think about it, or I just can't tell the story. I mean, that might be where you go with that. I spend a lot of my time in healthcare, and I have so many amazing stories of clients and patients who did amazing healings, so to speak. But, unless I could talk with them about it or totally hide their identity, I wouldn't feel comfortable telling their stories. So let's have a conversation for a few minutes. If there's time at the end, I'll tell one more brief story. So that's my 3-step method that I use. Any thoughts about that or comments?
Very good. Useful. Yeah.
Okay. I think in a nutshell, it's what I learned in my life was you don't just start telling your stories right after a trauma to anybody. You start with a very small audience, a therapist or professional, a minister, you're some very close friend, and then you work toward whether you should tell it to a broader audience. Okay. Hank?
I was going to say that it's also, a great way to get rid of your hidden agendas, so especially in those first 2 steps. And those hidden agendas are just sometimes really debilitating and keep you from carving out a real story. I had just a real quick example, if I may. I had a student who was very upset at his family because his family didn't tell him how seriously ill his father was. They just took him to MD Anderson every day to see him, same time every day. He was 13 years old at the time, and his mother wanted to save him the hurt. And then a few years later, he kept all of this in, and he told his family at Thanksgiving, "I just want you to know that I hate sitting with all of you. All of you treated me like a baby. All of you, I hate all of you when you told me that I couldn't see my dad or tell me what was wrong with him. I waited for him every day on the front steps at 5:30 when he came home from work, and he was always wonderful to me. And because of you, I stayed on those steps hoping he'd come home because I couldn't bring it to closure." And he felt better after that, but I thought it was an interesting take on his way of healing.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. Well, shall I tell another story? It'll take about 8 minutes or so. Oh, Chisholm, did you have your hand up?
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the whole privacy thing, and when it comes to like stories of events that happened within your family, to what would you ever swap the identifiers of your family members, or ask them first if you can tell the story if you're, say, talking from personal experience? Or where does that boundary kind of shift, I guess?
That's a great question. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. I had some uh, so there's generational family trauma, I guess they call it in my family. And when I first started telling stories, that was what I felt the need to talk about. And finally, I told a public story. And by the time I told it, the part that was this, I wound up just saying about 3 sentences about that, just to give the audience an idea of the general topic. And I didn't share any of the, you know, horror stories or whatever. And I'm that was 20 years ago. I looking back, I'm glad I did it that way. I could have gone into more detail. The story would have been more interesting. But then I would have turned a close family member into a villain. And it's a hard thing. On the other hand, if you've been really hurt by somebody, they don't really deserve to be protected. So it's a tough. I think the best thing is to tell that story to storytelling friends and ask what they think, and be open to all possibilities. Vivica, I think your hand is up.
It is. I'm wondering whether you have worked with children with telling their stories.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. How did you coach them through that? And well,
Um,
and ultimately, I'm wondering if you coach them through it to a point of sharing it publicly,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
how.
a little bit. Of course, we used a lot of play therapy to art therapy so they could express themselves. Um, there was one time that we consented to have the family tell their story publicly, and it was on the local news and everything. And we went through a lot of thinking and talking about it, and it turned out to be a very healing experience for them. So it ended well. Looking back though, as an old person, I think there was a risk that I wouldn't want to take now. So even I'm not sure how I feel. I go back and forth. Um, Children are very vulnerable. I mean, any patient in therapy is vulnerable. The ones that we would let the adults talk to the news and that sort of thing, tell their stories publicly, were ones who had been through our program and had been out for a year or two and were doing well, and they wanted to give back and to use their story to help others. And we did a lot of that with adult clients. Children is a lot tougher though. Yeah. Okay, we've got 12 minutes. You want to hear one more story? Or are you done? Are you cooked for the day? Okay. All right. I think this will be about an 8-minute story. And this is different. This is an experience from childhood that I've processed with a therapist for years. Up until the last year, I had a recurring nightmare of going back to high school to play my senior season of football. I mean, I would wake up several times a week with this nightmare. And why is it even a nightmare? And I said, well, maybe I should talk to my therapist about it, because I was talking with him about much more, quote, serious things, I thought. But anyway, after I talked with him about it and told the story, the nightmares went away. So I'll tell you the story, the way I've crafted it, and why it's not just a story about football. Just the first minute is football. There were only seconds remaining on the stadium clock, and a trip to the state playoffs was on the line. Our high school football team had a 6-point lead, but the other team was threatening to score. And then I got lucky. I intercepted a pass and we won the game. It was the happiest moment of my life. My teammates hugged me. The coach told me how proud he was. Even the quarterback from the other team came across the field and shook my hand. That was my sophomore year of high school. My junior year, I was not so lucky. In fact, I was downright unlucky. I injured my knee and was not able to play. These were the, pardon me for just a second. I was not so lucky my junior year. I injured my knee and was not able to play. I had loved playing football, and as I stood on the sidelines watching, I realized something. It wasn't just my knee that was hurting, it was my heart that was hurting too. This was before arthroscopic surgery, so there was nothing the doctors could do. And then I got lucky again. In fact, I would say a miracle happened. Life magazine published a story about Joe Namath and the New York Jets, a team that was famous or infamous, depending on which side you were, for doing things differently from other football teams. They had just won the Super Bowl and they were the talk of the world. The article had photographs of New York Jets football players taking ballet lessons. Ballet. Because, they said, it helps strengthen their knees and rehab knee injuries. I was desperate to play football again. So I got out the yellow pages and found the closest ballet studio. It was about 30 minutes from my little town in the city of Raleigh, and the studio was in the big city. I was in a little farming community. It was in the big city of Raleigh, North Carolina. I called the number, and the teacher was so thrilled to have a boy interested in ballet that she offered to teach me for free. She said, there's one condition, two conditions. You have to go out and get yourself a pair of ballet tights. And she gave me the address of where to get them. And you have to wear them to every class. You can't wear gym shorts. And secondly, you've got to participate in the spring recital. So I was desperate. Like I said, I was desperate to play football again. So a few days later, there I am putting on a pair of ballet tights for the first time, taking a deep breath and walking into my first class. Now, I had expected it to be a room full of girls, and I was kind of looking forward to that. You know, high school girls, pretty girls. Well, the room was full of girls, but they were little tiny girls, first grade girls, second, third, fourth grade girls. That was a humbling experience. And so were those ballet tights, by the way. They took some getting used to. But I was determined, so I worked hard. I practiced my pliés and my pirouettes and my grand jetés. And with my teacher's help, I learned how to engage my glutes to take pressure off my knees. Before long, the teacher was inviting me to train with the advanced class, the high school girls. And they were very serious about ballet, it turned out. So I started feeling like a real ballet dancer. From the high school girls, I learned that this teacher who was being so kind to me wasn't just an ordinary teacher. She was a legend. Her students had gone on to dance with the New York City Ballet, with Alvin Ailey's American Dance Theater, and on Broadway. The teacher's name was Betty Emanuel Kovac, and I still choke up when I say her name. And what I admired most about her, this was a woman in around the early 70s. She was so brave and so strong. For our spring recital, she choreographed a ballet of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which makes sense. This was the Bible Belt. but it was to the music of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. That was brave. I was the only boy, so I danced the role of Adam. Now, do you remember what Adam wore in the Garden of Eden? For those of you who did not pay attention in Sunday school, at first he wore his birthday suit, and then he upgraded just a bit to a fig leaf or two. Well, I guess Ms. Emanuel Kovac was a Bible literalist because that's pretty much what she had me wear. She took this was early 70s. She took a thong and sewed on some plastic leaves in strategic places. And that was my costume. Now, like those tights, this was a stretch for me, but my knee was better. And I said, that's what's important. Besides, and also I'll have to say, Ms. Kovac had saved me. She'd worked a miracle for me as far as I was concerned, fixing my knee. So I would have done anything for her. I probably would have danced naked if she told me to. But the other thing was, the recital was in the big city, Raleigh, North Carolina. My little farming community was at least 30 minutes away. Nobody would ever knew. This was long before social media. Even when a photographer showed up at the dress rehearsal, I knew he was only there to get recital photos of the little tiny girls in their pink tutus for their parents. So it didn't bother me. So imagine my surprise when, a couple of weeks later, large photographs of me started showing up on the walls of our football locker room. There I was in all my glory, decorated by those strategically placed plastic leaves. Turns out the photographer just happened to be friends with our new football coach. In North Carolina, it's just a small world. They were friends and they thought this was funny. How did I feel? Let me put it this way. I was supposed to go to the locker room that summer to lift weights, but I didn't. Then the coach sent teammates to my house to say, you're still welcome on the team. But I guess I just didn't feel welcome. I felt belittled and betrayed. Here I was doing everything I could to get myself back so I could play, and they choose to ridicule me. That's the way I felt. So I made a big decision. I quit the football team. And then I joined a different team, one that I didn't even know existed a few months earlier. It was called the North Carolina Repertory Ballet Company. I wish I could say that I went on to dance with the New York City Ballet. That would make a great ending to this story. It would be a story of revenge. But in truth, I wasn't even close to being that good. I wish I could say that I never missed football, but that would be a lie. As I said, even to this day, I have recurring dreams of going back to high school to play my senior season. With the help of my therapist, I think I figured out why. I miss wearing that football uniform with its pads and its armor and feeling strong and brave, like a man, like a warrior. I miss the coach looking me in the eye and telling me how proud he is. I miss the camaraderie of my teammates. I miss the competition, things that teenage boys really like and need. But thanks to my therapist, I still consider myself the luckiest teenager who ever lived because ballet taught me things that football never could. Ballet taught me how to be strong and brave without the pads and the armor. Ballet taught me how to be my own person despite ridicule or peer pressure. Ballet taught me how to dance naked before the world, literally and metaphorically. And once you can do that, you can do anything. That's my story. we have 1 minute. I hope, you can see the same sort of formula. Um, I hope you can see the same sort of formula that I used in the other story of Mrs. Kovac. My ballet teacher was the real hero, and that I tried to be vulnerable without being needy. I tried to end it instead of being a victim. I ended as being very lucky, which I was, but it took me decades to figure that out. And I don't say it in the story, but I have other nightmares, but I don't have that one. I haven't had it in months anyway. So thank you for listening. Vivica?
Okay, there I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. You should see on your screen if anyone needs CEUs, there's the code and the passcode, the QR code and the password for that QR code.
You might have to put it back up.
Oh, is it
No,
showing
it
yourself
was
now?
on and then now it's
It went
showing
away. Okay, hold
the
on. Let
Google
me
Drive. I don't know.
pull it back up. Is it there now?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and it is 4:16, so we're going to have to say bye-bye and see you in the main session. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Warren.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, everyone. I think I'm going to close out the meeting now. I think that's most of us. So y'all have a great rest of the conference.